Welcome to Women and Children First Bookstore. I'm Arya Bachi, and I'm a bookseller at Women and Children First. I wish we could all commune in person in the same space, especially because I know our authors tonight are going to vibe so strongly. But thank you all for being a part of our virtual event. We begin all of our virtual events in the same way as we began all of our in-store events, by acknowledging that the land on which the bookstore stands in the Andersonville neighborhood of Chicago is the unceded occupied territory of the Peoria, Potawatomi, Miami, and Sioux people. We encourage you to learn more about native land acknowledgements and about the rightful inhabitants of the land from which you are viewing tonight's event. And a good place to start is native-land.ca. Our bookstore has reopened to the public with pandemic protocols in place, but we will still continue to host our events virtually, which is actually kind of awesome for those of us who feel more comfortable on our own sofas or snuggled up with our own cats, our respective cats. And our events will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can rewatch them anytime. We get a lot of questions about how to best support an independent bookstore during a pandemic. And the simplest answer is that you can support us literally anytime by shopping our online store. For example, by ordering a copy of the book we're here to discuss tonight. I'm pausing for catching breath, applause. Anyone who has not pre-ordered IKENGA, you can follow the Buy the Book link at the bottom of your screen, and we'll ship you your hardcover first edition with this actually perfectly sized bookmark and a signed book plate. During tonight's event, anyone is welcome to ask the panel feature just below the Buy the Book button. So with all that said, I'm going to just move right along to Nnedi, American author of science fiction, African futurism, African jujuism, and as she describes it in her own Instagram profile, whatever. Her storytelling style doesn't fit neatly into any one compartment. Her narratives are unique to someone of West African heritage who has lived and worked in the US, unique to someone diagnosed with scoliosis at the age of 13, who underwent spinal fusion surgery at age 19 and was at one point paralyzed from the waist down, unique to someone who once wanted to be an entomologist and who now holds a PhD in English. She is a captivating thinker, and her body of work is a lush ecosystem unto itself. So I could not be prouder or more full of joy to welcome Nnedi Okorafor. I'm pausing for applause again. Applause during the in-person events, I must say. Nnedi is joined in conversation tonight by Tochi Onyebuchi, author of Beast Made of Night and its sequel, Crown of Thunder, as well as War Girls and its upcoming sequel, Rebel Sisters. Hello, 2 books in 1 year. Adult fiction debut, Riot Baby, is a novella that's searingly hot with social issues and complicated, empathetic characters. It's one of my favorite books of 2020. And I have a feeling this conversation is going to be one of my favorites too. So I am going to open up the screen to Nnedi Okorafor and Tochi Onyebuchi. As soon as I figure out.
With our breaths held. Oh my.
Ah, you're on mute. Okay.
Oh, am I muted?
Yeah, no, you're good now.
Okay. It wouldn't be a proper, virtual event if there weren't at least some like audio video hiccups.
Yes.
So I'm glad we got those out of the way.
Yep. That's spice.
Yeah. So I was wondering, would you like to like read an excerpt, or do you just want to jump straight into conversation?
Sure, I'll read something. I'll just read a little excerpt.
Perfect.
This is nice and short. It's kind of in the middle of stuff, and I'm not explaining anything. You just got to read it to get
nice.
It. So I'm just going to start. We just know that Nnedi is a 12-year-old. That's it. 12-year-old boy. Nnedi didn't want to look. He knew who he'd see. Never shy away from conflict, his father had once told him. Look it in the eye and deal with it. And his mother had stood behind his father and added, courage, my son. Your father means you should have courage, but be smart about it. So Nnedi turned to look. He saw a procession of 10 fashionably dressed, gold and diamond wearing, attention usurping women and men filing into the compound. Nnedi tried to stand up straight with his chin up, as his father would have. But instead, fear made him slump in his seat and barely lift his head. Nnedi remembered his father angrily talking about these individuals. Everyone knows who they are, but people are too afraid to confront them. If anything, people treat them like Nollywood movie stars. These were the most prominent criminals in Caleria. That regal old woman wearing the red textile clothing had to be Mama Goslow. His father was right. Indeed, she did walk like a buffalo, and her expensive outfit was thrown off balance by her signature wide, blocky black shoes. The man in the suit that was too big for his skinny frame must have been Never Die, the thief who had been shot by police many times but remained alive. Nnedi was also sure he spotted Bad Market and 3 Days Journey too. All of them were strutting like celebrities on the red carpet, when they were actually unwanted guests at the chief of police's burial service. Leading this procession was an expensively dressed man who was even shorter than Nnedi. Nnedi's stomach dropped and his hands grew cold. The man looked more like a movie star than all the others. He was handsome and carried himself like he expected the world to bow at his feet. This was the very man most, including Nnedi, believed was responsible for his father's murder, the chief of chiefs. If he hadn't been the one to pull the trigger, he certainly paid and ordered someone to do it. The problem was there was no proof, no gun registration, no witnesses, no confessions, nothing. It was as if a ghost had shot his father and then fled back to the spirit world to laugh about it. But truth outshone evidence, and Nnedi knew. Everyone knew. And though he'd never seen the chief of chiefs with his own eyes, he was sure this was him right now, waltzing into his father's funeral with the confidence of a well-known ghost. I'll stop there.
Pausing for applause. Oh my goodness. So I've been reading this book, and as with a lot of your work, as a fellow Nigerian American, I'm having these constant moments of recognition, right? Just like, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. Like, my dad's name is Nnedi, and my
cousins.
Yeah, exactly, right? The food, suya, chin chin, all of that, and even the fact that like traffic jams are called go-slows, like little things like that. Yeah. And one thing that I found unique about IKENGA is that, oftentimes when I'll come across like English language narratives about Nigeria, they'll often be set in Lagos, right? Like as though that's the encapsulation of Nigeria, right? This really hectic, chaotic, too big place. But this is set in Imo State.
Yeah.
And so could you talk about like where, like why that setting, where the story, why it made sense to set the story there?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, Lagos is it's like such a perfect place to set a story. Like, how can you not set a story there? Like that city, that mega city is just so much energy, so much going on. So I totally get, I've written stuff there, obviously, Lagoon, but like, with this story was very much, it's just the way it came about. It was an emo state. Like it naturally, it wasn't something that I thought about. It was just, this was where the story was. And growing up, whenever, because, you know, Niger American. So like my parents were taking us back, like my siblings and I, back to Nigeria since we were very young. So we've had those trips were everything. And whenever we would go, we'd stay in Lagos, you know, which is, you know, just meet with everybody there and then have that experience, which is always an experience. And then we would go to the village. In the village, and for me, the village is in, you know, it's in Igbo land in the southeast. And there were stories there too. There were stories there. I mean, like, there were stories there. So like when I set out to, this story just came about, IKENGA came about in so many, like, it was just so many, a culmination of so many things. But like, I wanted to see this modern day story, magical story, mystical story set there, because there are stories there. There's so much that goes on there. You know, there's so much good and bad.
A lot of drama in the village.
Exactly. Thank you. Perfect. There's a lot of drama there. And so like, it just felt natural. And I realized that I hadn't read a story where, you know, with kids and kids having adventures and just doing stuff set there. And I just remembered, like, when my sisters and I, and my brother he's 7 years younger, so it was really mainly my sisters and I, when we were this age, we had mad adventures there. You know, mad adventures, you know, just doing stuff. It was just such a place. It was a place where you ran wild with your cousins and just got into it. So it's like, that was really where this came from. I wanted to see that. I wanted to just, you know, I wanted to see that side of things. So that's where the location came in.
That's amazing. Yeah, there's such fun energy in the book, and it definitely feels like, oh, like kids going on adventures. And like, so there, you know, there's so many things I love about this book that I'm like, my words are tumbling over themselves. But could you talk about the superhero narrative and like how you sort of flipped it or remixed it for this book?
Yeah, it's crazy because like when I wrote this, I've been writing this for a while. It's like I've been writing this since 2009. So it's been a lot. It's gone through a long process. And like, so back into when I wrote this, you know, like the whole Marvel thing was not in my, you know, it wasn't in my head. And so like, but I think I don't know, like the superhero thing came in, it wasn't conscious. I know that it wasn't conscious. Like I wasn't thinking, it was like, as the years rolled by and as I edited and re-edited and like shifted and did things with the narrative, like it was especially in the last part of the editing process, I tweaked some of the superhero stuff, like, but it wasn't originally like, it was more, this boy gets this item that changes him, and he's grappling with the power of that, and all of these colorful characters in his town, because there are always these colorful characters in the town. So like, it's like I came at the superhero narrative sideways. It wasn't conscious to begin with. And so it's interesting how that evolved over so many years. So it's like, yeah, just the idea of a kid going out and having adventures and doing amazing things and dealing with power turned into a superhero narrative. That's really what happened. Yeah. That
it's amazing because the story is so specific, but at the same time, you know, as a kid who grew up watching the Saturday morning X-Men cartoons and you know, Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond, like I recognized like an Uncle Ben moment, or like you know, Bruce Wayne as a kid moment, and like there were all these very seminal moments in like the superhero origin story that like I recognized in the book, and that filled me with so much joy. And I think it's really cool too, because I feel like at least personally, like being Nigerian is like operating in this liminal space, right? Where, you know, you have the purity police who are like, oh, you're not Nigerian enough. And then like, oh, you're not American, right?
Yes.
And it's like, there's this mishmash of influences where you have on the one hand, like visits to the village. And then on the other hand, you have like Naruto, right? And the way that you've been able to blend them together, particularly in this story, I just really loved and appreciate. There's not a question there. I just wanted to say I really liked that. At what point did you know this was going to be middle grade? Was that ever like a conscious like decision or thought?
It wasn't conscious. It never is. But I knew he was young. I knew he was young, and it wasn't. But it's still like you can have young stories about young characters that are very adult. Like I'm sorry, I thought that the movie Jojo Rabbit was very adult as a kid. So, and then of course Pan's Labyrinth. So it's like you can have that, but this one wasn't like that. This one, it was fun. It was just, you know, it was fun. You know, there was a joy to it. I mean, I know it starts off with his father. His father is murdered. He's a police chief who's murdered. But like everything that ensues after that, there's a joy and a celebration in there. And like in knowing that, I kind of, it's not that I thought, okay, this is a middle grade novel, but it made sense that it would be. I mean, his age and then the joyous part of it, like and there's a lightness to this particular narrative. So it wasn't it's never a conscious decision. I don't know what that is. Like I just write something and I just, okay, this is middle grade. Okay, this is adult. I'll just write it and then it will just kind of deal with itself. Yeah.
No, I can dig it. It's an incredibly like assured, like it feels weird calling like, you know, applying the word debut to your 18th book.
I know. Feels really weird.
Yeah, right.
I'm just like,
right.
Okay,
but this is like out of those, like this is your first middle grade, and like I just have to say you like stuck the landing. It's really but I think also too, going to that point, it's very obviously, or at least to me as a reader, it reads very obviously as part of this general project in your work of African futurism, African Jujuism, like, you know, this fantastica that springs from specific African realities. Now, could you like talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I do.
He's like, it's what I do.
It's like what I do. It's like, and that it's hard for me to even like go deeper than that, because that's what I've been doing from the very beginning, from the very first story that I wrote. That's what it was. And it's like, and it has a lot to do with being Nigerian, but like a specific type of Nigerian where, you know, like I said, my parents have been taking us back for a long time, like since we were little. And like, I've always had this, this tendency to listen and be interested. Listen, like I would go and I would hear, especially the elders speaking and like what they had to say. Whereas some kids who come from the, you know, who are born in the US and they go back, they don't want to hear any of that.
Yeah, they can't wait to get back to the States.
Right. You know, they just want to stay in the air conditioning and eat plantain.
Yeah, exactly. Keep the mosquito net, you know, like.
Right. Mosquito net, you know, they don't want to, no dirt, nothing. So, and I get that. I totally get it. But like, you know, my sisters and I, we weren't like that. We were like this, we were always in it. And I was always interested in just, I wanted to know. And it wasn't because I was trying to find myself. It had nothing to do with me. I was just interested. I was like, this is interesting. So like, I would listen, and I would listen from a disconnected kind of point of view, in that, you know, like I said, I wasn't listening to connect myself to something. It was more that I was just, oh, okay, masquerades. Okay, what is that all about? Oh, that doesn't include me, but I still want to know. And oh, it doesn't include me. Now I really want to, you know, that kind of thing. So like, it's always been like, that's just always been something that I wanted to just kind of unearth and revel in. And so when I started writing these stories, it was just naturally a part of what I was doing. You know, it was like I wanted to, and then there's also the taboo the taboo aspect of it. Like there's certain things that women in particular, because, you know, Igbo's are very patriarchal. You know, if you're a woman, you can't, you know. So
you're a woman.
You're a woman. Shut up. No, I mean, but you know what I mean. So it's very patriarchal. So like there were things that I wasn't supposed to know and that I wasn't supposed to hear. And I just got really, really interested in it because of that. And so then in writing fiction, when you're writing fiction, you have the license, and I think I'm going off on a tangent, but whatever, let's just go. But you have the license to revel in those things that you're not supposed to, or those things that are taboo or considered evil, you know, by colonialist standards. So like, that was really where I wanted to kind of just, that was the root of everything that I was doing. And that was where all of my stories came from. So like that whole idea of it being rooted in specific, like a specific culture and strongly rooted in that. And then everything growing out from that, it's been what I've done, you know, what I've been interested in doing, and the types of stories that I'm telling from the very beginning, but also like that whole, like the Nigerian American thing, and facing it and facing like, who am I? And like, what am I this, or am I that? And then embracing everything about yourself. Like that has led to this exploration as well. Like there's so many sides to it. Like I know exactly how I ended up doing this stuff, but it's very hard to explain. It's you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That, I mean, the taboo part resonated with me so hard because like last October I published a book about the Biafran War.
Ah yes. I was like, when you did that, I was like, wow, brave man. I hope he's ready for that.
Yeah, like that was exactly in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
As I was writing this book, and like as it came out, I was like, you know, sort of putting my armor on, getting ready for the backlash, because it's, you know, it's like you were talking about. It's one of those things that's just not talked about. In fact, it's like discussion about it is absolutely discouraged. And what was interesting to me with the response to War Girls was the incredible appreciation from the Niger American readers, because it was like our parents and grandparents didn't talk about it. Like this was all stuff that we had to find out about like circuitously. And it was sort of like, you know, you're doing research on your own background. And so there's always like, it gets to that sort of remove that you were talking about earlier, where it's like, you know, I'm seeing these things from a distance and I want to know more about them, as opposed to like living on the inside and not necessarily having that curiosity about it.
Yeah. Or having one point of view.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know, you have this point of view, and if you look at any other points of views, it's wrong and bad, and you should not do that. Like being what we are, you're able to kind of be removed, where you can ask the really difficult questions and listen to the things that are really hard to hear, because you're kind of removed from it enough where it doesn't hit as hard. So you learn these details, and then you write about them and piss people off. That is our job.
We live for that. We live for that. But yeah, it was funny too, because a very strange thing happened while I was writing War Girls, which is that I got much closer to my mom, and we're like already close, but you know, she was a child during the Civil War, and she never talked about it. Like, I think the reason I found out about it was some random anecdote that she told that was unrelated to any like existing conversation. And I was like, wait a second. Wait, Mom, you did what? She was like, yeah, you know, our family got kicked out of our house during the war and we had to live in the forest. Da, da, da. And she talked about it like it was the weather. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Like, wait. And there was a moment when we were getting ready to do the audiobook, and I got sent a list of terms, pronunciation terms. And I had my mom record her pronunciations of the words so that I could send in. And like, it was, in many ways, it's been like that moment has been one of the brightest stars in my like writing career so far, because it encapsulated so much of what was like, there was so much going on, like, you know, like if like that type of moment, anyway. But yeah, like it's like that, I think, is one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to and appreciative of your work is because like I can tell the Niger Americanness from it, like, you know, with Binti, like it's there, like living in that liminal space and like navigating both sides of a conflict. Like it's there. So like I just thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for like being able to talk about these things, because one, they're interesting, and there's so much, there's so many layers to it. There's so many layers, you know, and like it's an interesting space to be in when you write speculative fiction.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
You know, I mean, like when you're looking into the future, the ability that you have and your point of view, and then your point of view towards like the mystical, it's just no,
it really is, because I think, you know, there are conversations that, you know, have been had for forever in speculative fiction communities around writing the other, but in a particular manner with regards to speculative fiction. So like if all your characters that are coded as characters of color come from the South in your fantasy world, and all of them have dark skin and all of them have these barbaric traits, like you're saying something, right? Or like if all your like non-binary characters are robots, like you're saying something, right? And so it's like, and so it's so refreshing to see examples of imaginings that have, you know, what are traditionally considered the others, but what are for us the I, right? That exists in these complex and incredibly realized manners. Like I can't tell you how much I love Who Fears Death, that manages simultaneously to be this incredible, like it's post-apocalyptic sci-fi while at the same time being this incredible like fantasy narrative.
Yeah.
And like, it's in Sudan. Like it just, I love that. Like I absolutely love that. So I will just say to everybody in the chat, like, definitely get IKENGA. Like you will not regret it. But also like Nnedi's entire oeuvre, like her entire body of work, all 18 books. Like it's like, it's just, it's mind busting and it's heart expanding, and like you will get your life. So yeah, I guess at this point I will open it up to questions. I think there's an ask a question button towards the bottom of the screen, underneath the buy the book with signed book plate thing. So I'm not entirely sure how it goes, but yes, drop your questions in the ask a question box, and then I will be able to forward them to our guest of honor tonight. But in the meantime, like I'm trying to think, there's so many questions. There's so many questions I want to ask. But like I think one of the so you know, this is 18. This is number 18. You've been around the block quite a few times. Like what to you has been one of, if not like the signal change in like this, in writing speculative fiction for you? Like what is, like, in terms of, you know, community or industry or like the world that you've had to navigate, like like looking around, what do you see now that's different categorically from like, you know, 10 years ago or even further when you were just starting out?
Yeah. I think that I'm trying to keep my train of thought here.
Yeah, it's a lot.
God, I just lose my train of thought so easily on these things. I think that the biggest change that I see now is an interest in the stories of, you know, of not just people of color, but others. I'm just gonna say others, an interest in our stories. That's what I see. That's the change that I see. Like my first novel was published in 2005. That was Zara the Windseeker. And that, like, I remember the climate when that was published. Like, I remember it was like, a complete, like Zara the Windseeker was viewed with complete confusion. They were like, oh, this is African and it's Nigerian, it's science fiction, but it's fantasy. There's a girl who can fly, but you got biotech, you know, I don't know what to do with. That's really what the response was. And like, I was a new writer, and like, luckily I'm just bullheaded. Like I love writing and I love telling stories so much. I didn't give it. I'm like, okay, if you don't understand it, I'm still writing this other thing anyway. And I know this is good. Like, I always knew the story was good. So that was what carried me through that. But if I were a less secure writer, I would not be writing right now. If I were a less, you know, rabid writer, I would not be I would have given up, because back then they were like, you know, we're confused by this. We don't know how to I was told that a lot. We don't know how to categorize this. And that therefore made it unsellable. Yeah. So like now I mean, of course we still have issues, of course, but like there's an interest, there is a hunger for our stories now, you know, and from literature to film to music, like there's a hunger that was not there before. And I've been around, like I've been here so long. Oh my God, I really haven't. But it's like I've seen the change. I saw it. Like I've seen it. I saw when it was that, and now it's this. And so I think that's the biggest change. And I still say the same thing that I would have said back then, which was write your story. Right? There's always someone that wants to hear the story that you have to tell. I still say that. I was saying that back then when nobody was like, you know, wasn't when there wasn't this grabby thing going on that there is now. Write your story in the way that you want to tell it from your, you know, point of view, and like do what you want to do. That's always been my thing. And like right now, that is, like I said, there's a powerful hunger for it. Who knows how long that will last? And I'm not concerned with it. I'm not concerned. I was thinking of that Hamilton line. It's not a moment, it's the movement. I love amen. But like that line really that hits home for me right now. This isn't just a wave. This is change, and it's not. I don't believe that it's going. And I think it's going to become more. This is like. It's not a moment, it's a movement. My God. Yeah. It's like, you know. So yeah, I think that's the biggest change that I've seen.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So one of the questions that we got, speaking to like telling your specific story. So a lot of the character names in here are like for me, they read as like incredibly familiar. They really resonated, but like 3 Days Journey, for instance. And I knew I could hear it in my head too when they said it. Like 3 Days Journey, Mama Go Slow, Never Die. Like, what was your process coming up with those character names?
You know who helped me with those names? Those names came out of a deep conversation, because early on when I was writing this, I was, you know, and he's still a really good friend of mine, but there's a Nollywood film director, Chidi Chikere, where we were talking about like these criminal names, and he you know, those were some of the ones that he came up with, and I was like, yeah, is it like every single one? Like I think that all of those he might have come up with those.
That's so funny.
I can't remember where I got the big blocky shoes that Mama Go Slow wears. But I know that one. I can't. That was like totally me. I don't know. That was just a thing. I don't know. But like those names. Yeah, that was out of that conversation so long ago, because they were just so emo.
So emo. So like that was the thing. They are so emo. Like when y'all find out why this character is called 3 Days Journey, it like I could not stop laughing. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So one thing that's been that I've been very interested in following with regards to your career is your efforts with regards to the book selling scene in Nigeria. Like what has that been like, sort of navigating that, and you know tell us, what are your dispatches?
Yeah, I mean, I really, it's more, I do what I can, and I'm a writer, not a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I have to work with other people to get them there. And that's why, like, I've had a lot of, you know, I've had several Nigerians yelling at me and like, I can't find your book yet. Like,
Yup.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know. So like, you know, the book scene in Nigeria is fraught. I have, gosh, I have three publishers. Kachifo Limited, which is Farafina, Cassava Republic, and Wida
Books.
Yeah. So like they're really the ones who are doing the heavy lifting with these things, and I know it's very tough. You know, I don't know all of the details, but like they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and getting them to people and getting the books to people and having them available, and it's tough. It's tough, and I you know, I wish things were easier, but it's been, it's tough. And like even with IKENGA was before Penguin Books bought it. IKENGA was with Cassava Republic, and like I wanted IKENGA to be my first book that was first published in Nigeria. That's my whole point, because that is very important to me. Having the book published in Nigeria feels like the path is like the journey is completed. Yeah. Like Lagoon has yet to be published in Nigeria, and that feels wrong.
Yeah.
That feels wrong. Like it's a book about Nigeria. It's very, you know, I had Nigerians in mind when I wrote that book, and it's not published there. So it's like, but like, yeah, I mean, but things were difficult, and that was part of why it took so long for IKENGA to come out, and hopefully in due time that IKENGA will be published in Nigeria as well. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, because you have a battle on two fronts, right? So like, you know, a book will be published in Nigeria, it'll be like 3,000 naira, right? So it's not like the most affordable thing in the world. Right. And then on the other hand, you have to convince your American publisher that there is a market for books about Nigerians in Nigeria. Right. Right. And so it's like, you know, you're fighting a war on two fronts. But like, I have to commend you for like the work that you've done and just the sort of the interest that you've raised with this sort of thing, because, you know, it's prompted me to have conversations with my publishers that I might not have, you know, normally thought to have. And so I think, you know, it's really exciting. Like, as dispiriting as it can seem at the moment, it is really exciting because it does feel like, at least with the conversations that are happening, we're in a different place than we were like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One question that I want to ask. So you are maybe the busiest writer I know.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And my impression is that the vast majority of stuff that you're working on at any given moment, you can't talk about. Yeah. Right. Like that's so okay. So that's correct. Is there anything that you're working on at the moment?
There are things.
Yeah.
There are things that I can talk about. Like, what am I working on right now? Like, I just finished a novel called Noor that my DAW publisher is looking at. That's an adult novel. And then Remote Control is coming out in January. So there's that. Okay, this is the hard part. Okay, so the film stuff.
I had to ask. I had to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's a large part of what I'm doing. So one of the things that and I'm also the third Akata book, you know, which I just finished a draft of. The fact that I finished Noor in the third Akata book in the midst of what I'm doing, no one can understand how insane that is. I don't know how I did that. I do not know, because right now, so we know that Who Fears Death has been optioned by HBO. That one I'm consulting, and that one's going through what it's going through. Won't say anything. And then and then Binti has been optioned by Hulu and optioned by Media Res and was bought by Hulu, and I am co-writing that. And I'm co-writing that with Stacey Asier Kufer, she's written for Watchmen, she's written for Hunter, she's amazing screenwriter. And so like we've been working on that. And when I say that we're we're writing the pilot for the show. That means we're first adapting the show, like adapting the book to be a TV series, and then we work on the pilot. And the pilot, when you're writing the pilot, you write that thing like a freaking million times. You have to understand it a million times. And then you have producers that you have to please, and then you have the Hulu people that you have to please, the lower level, and then the higher level. It's like many levels.
Yep. Okay? Yep. You're getting notes from a lot of people.
Notes.
Producer notes.
24 hours after you'll toil in that thing for weeks, and then you'll send it in and be like, we got it done. And then 24 hours later, they have 5 pages of notes.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, damn, can you like sit with this for a little bit?
You know, you can't even enjoy the moment. You can't breathe. So that's just one. So that's Binti. So that I've been doing that with Binti, and then Wild Seed, Octavia. We're adapting Wild Seed, Octavia Butler's Wild Seed or Patternist series, and I'm co-writing that with Winery Kahiu. Same process. The process has been even more intense, though. That one's with Amazon Studios, so even more intense than Binti, even though Binti is probably ahead of Wild Seed. So there's Wild Seed, and then, I can't talk about that one. There's one that I can't talk about. If I only could. It's too much. It's so much. But yeah, it's another film/TV thing.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work.
Yep.
You know. And then there's something else. But like, you know, so there's a lot of the screenwriting side of it has been really, really intense. And then there's, of course, the graphic novel stuff. You know,
congratulations on LaGuardia's Eisner, by the way.
Yes, that was and Hugo.
And Hugo, yes.
Hugo.
And like, Hugo.
What? That was crazy. Very satisfying, though, I must say. But like, you know, that, you know, we're thinking about doing a volume 2 of that as well, but like in due time. So like these are all things that I'm just juggling, and there's some other stuff. Yeah, there are like things I can't talk about. but like I'm doing all these things, and I still got 2 novels written in the middle of all of it, which is just, I pat myself on the back.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. Like that, like a gangster, right? Like a boss. Wait, so agree with you on that. So what has the process been like adapting your own work versus adapting somebody else's?
It's been okay. So adapting Binti was not. Binti was tough. It was a lot of work, but it lent itself very well. That was fairly smooth adaptation. Who Fears Death? Not so smooth, but we'll leave that alone. Wild Seed, adapting Wild Seed has been interesting, very, very interesting, and harder because Octavia isn't here for us to talk to. Like, we have her notes and stuff, and I had, like, you know, I'd met Octavia in person before, and there were aspects that were working into the pilot that I actually talked to Octavia about.
Oh,
like, which is really, really cool to be able to, you know, because we talked about the beginning of Wild Seed, which is set in pre-colonial Nigeria before it was Nigeria. And I actually talked to her about that part. So like there was some notes that she actually gave me that she didn't know would come in to
amazing.
Yeah, so that's been really cool. But like it's been an interesting process. It's tough with, you know, you've got 3 books? Well, we're really focusing on 3 of the Patternist books, and it's a little different. You're constantly thinking you want to stay true to, you know, you want to keep true to the vision, and especially being an author, like a novelist who has adapted her own work and is now adapting someone. Like I'm very sensitive to that, staying true to it. I'm very sensitive to that, and that's made for interesting writing, that a screenwriter who, one, isn't a novelist and probably, you know, may look at the book and be like, I can tear this thing apart, it's fine and easy, versus like someone, I know what it's like to be on that side of it. And I know what it's like to write the novel, and my point of view is actually, in my opinion, pretty unique when it comes to adapting someone else's work. So yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned I've learned so much about screenwriting, about adaptation. It's cool because I love learning. Like that's one of my things. So yeah, it's good.
That's dope. What screenwriting software do you use? I use Scrivener.
Final Draft.
Okay, so when I was in film school, I used Final Draft. And I was also, for my prose stuff, a Microsoft Word devotee for like forever, right?
I still am.
Yeah, like I was like, you know, I ride or die for Microsoft Word, like, you know, till death do us part. Like I was hardcore. And then I don't know how, but somebody got me to try Scrivener. And I was like, I think part of it too was that because Final Draft is always updating their stuff. And I'm like, I'm not always going to pay for an update. And Scrivener had all these different formats. And so I was like, oh, like, even if I don't do novels here, I can do, you know, my screenplays, TV stuff, like, you know, pays for itself. And slowly but surely it became the word processor of choice. And I was so shocked. I was like, how did this happen?
Converted.
I know, like that's how it happens. It just slides its way in and you're like, oh, wait a second, I can't do without this. One question we got, another question about process. So like, how do you divide up your time? Do you have like, like, you know, whether it's like daily routine or figuring out what project is a priority at a particular moment? Because me personally, I'm just chaotic. Yeah, I'm just like all over the place with it. Are you the same? Are you different? Are you like somewhere in between?
Organized chaos.
Yep.
Organized chaos. I'll wake up in the morning and first thing I'll think is, what am I going to do today? And then
take over the world, Pinky.
Right, like, how am I going to do this thing? Like, you know, it's chaotic, and I couldn't say that I have a system, but whatever I'm doing works because I get things done. You know, so it's like, but I do like, you know, I'm co-writing a lot of things with Wanuri Kahiu, so we kind of have the same brain on things, and we'll each kind of push each other. Like if there's something that needs to get done, we have this way of pushing each other. And one thing about Final Draft is that Final Draft has a mechanism where you can, you know, it has the thing that Google Docs has where you can work on things at the same time. Yeah, so we could work on the thing while she's in Kenya and I'm, you know, here, and so that's been good. But yeah, it's chaotic. But I think I've been doing this for so long that I have some kind of format in my mind, and it's intuitive at this point, so I don't need to have like a schedule.
Yeah. No, it's the same for me. I think part of it too is that, and this is something that I think I see in you, is that I love writing. Yeah, like I don't have to be convinced to do it. I don't have to be pushed to do it. Like nobody has to nudge me. I don't need any sort of reward system. The project is the reward, right? And I feel like if that's the thing, if I don't have to coerce myself into working on a project, I'm working on it because I love it. I'm working on it because I'm fascinated by it. Then like everything else just figures itself out.
Completely true.
Yeah. So like we really are kindred spirits. I could not be happier for having this conference. I think our time is up. I know. Like, and it was funny. I was telling Ari, I was like, you know, this conversation could easily go on for 3 hours, like easily, and we would still manage to hit our deadlines, right? Exactly. Like, you know, flex. But this has been such an incredible pleasure, and you know, congratulations again on IKENGA.
Thank you.
Everybody,
in the world.
Yeah, it's out in the world. It's such an incredible and beautiful and like lovely book, and like the Niger American superhero nerd in me is just like geeking out over this book. I love it so much. So everyone in the chat, be sure to click the buy the book with signed book plate, like green button underneath me and Nnedi's faces. And yeah, like thank you for coming, and Nnedi, thank you so much for like everything. This has been awesome, and like I just have to say as a final note, like you are such, and this isn't to make you like sound like old or like a veteran or whatever, but like you are such an inspiration, and like It's like you're like Sidney Poitier to my Denzel, right?
Oh,
like
man,
I'm
wow.
constantly like, you know, chasing you and being made better for the chase. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Women and Children First, for hosting and for letting me be a part of this. Everybody buy IKENGA, and have an incredible night.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, you know, you can also buy Tochi's books from us.
Oh, yeah. No, I wrote the books, by the way.
We literally have them all. And, you know, you can, if you're in Chicago, you can definitely reach out to me just one-to-one, and we can geek out about those also. So thank you again. Thank you, Tochi. Thank you so much, Nnedi. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. You too. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.